The winning blueprint presents.
In the lab room.
Welcome. You are in the lab room. I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me. There is a lot to get to from last night's shellacking, absolute destruction of the Chicago Bears at the hands of the San Francisco 49ers. And let's start with the quarterback position because that's where we like to start most when talking football in the National Football League. We like to start with the quarterbacks. They are the most important position on the field. And so we'll start there. Looking at the 49ers quarterback position. I talked about this about a month ago. It might be maybe 6 weeks ago or so where I alluded to the fact that don't be surprised if the 49ers make a change. I didn't think it would occur this year. I didn't see Alex Smith getting hurt. I couldn't foresee that happening. You never like to wish injury on anyone. Couldn't foresee him getting hurt. But I told you in the offseason, look for a controversy. You know, they paid Alex Smith. They gave him the contract. But he has limitations. And they like what they see out of Colin Kaepernick. And I told you, when you saw him in the Jets game and you were seeing him being played in all these different ways where they were running option for him and they were putting him in the game, it wasn't just to run. And there were times where he would come in, sling it 60 yards down the field. It may not be completed, but he would come in and throw a little pass here and there. They were working him in, implementing the offense in, and showing you that, look, this guy is a viable option at the quarterback position. And I said, they like him enough to the point that Alex Smith needs to be wary of the fact that Colin Kaepernick is coming for his job at some point. There will be a controversy at some point in the offseason. I said that was going to happen in the offseason. Didn't see Alex Smith getting hurt. Didn't see Colin Kaepernick coming in and playing the way he did on Monday. That was, without a doubt, one of the most impressive performances by a young quarterback I've seen all season. And look, I'm going to take Robert Griffin III out of this conversation because A, I'm biased, and B, what he does is so different from every other quarterback. You can liken him to Colin Kaepernick a little bit, though, because they're both of the dual threat variety. Colin Kaepernick can tuck it and run with the best of them. And so from that standpoint, you can liken him to Robert Griffin III, but Robert Griffin III right now is transcending the quarterback position as we know it. And so I take him out of the conversation. But for young quarterbacks this season, that was one of the most impressive pieces of work I've seen on the National Football League field this season. I mean, what Colin Kaepernick did to this Bears defense was nothing short of remarkable. He dissected them in ways that we didn't know was possible this season, especially with how good this Bears defense had been playing up until this point. He absolutely shredded this Bears defense. He did it with his legs. He did it with his arms. He did it with his brain. I mean, he did everything you'd expect out of a 8-9 year vet. But he's only in his second season in the National Football League. I mean, the plays that he was able to make inside and out of the pocket, the checks that he made at the line, I mean, everything he did went well last night. There was nothing he could do wrong. He was like an NBA shooter who had the hot hand that everything he threw up went in the basket. Everything he did last night went as well as you could possibly hope it could go. I mean, he played out of his mind. I mean, that first possession, hell, the first two possessions, you can't play him any better than that. I mean, some of these throws with the touch and the accuracy that he put on these throws to Vernon Davis over the middle of the field, I mean, you couldn't have went and handed the football to Vernon Davis any cleaner. To Kyle Williams, any cleaner. I mean, these were some grade A, top choice, elite level throws that he was making with ease. You can't sit here and tell me Alex Smith makes all of these throws without any incompletions. I won't listen to it. Alex Smith can play the quarterback position. I'm not going to sit here and use this as a tool, as a platform to bash Alex Smith. I won't do that. He took this team to the NFC Championship game a year ago. I won't sit here and badmouth Alex Smith, but what I will tell you, he's bigger, he's stronger, and he's faster than Alex Smith. He has the tools to get it done in the National Football League. And so, Jim Harbaugh, we know, was looking for an upgrade. We saw it with the Peyton Manning sweepstakes. He was looking for a replacement. He won't come out and tell you that. Of course, he has to save face with Alex Smith. Everybody wants to be wanted. So he has to save face. But we all know, and he was in heavy pursuit of Peyton Manning. You know why? Because he's looking for an upgrade. Everyone is. Everyone's always looking for a better option, especially at the quarterback position, the most important position on the field in the National Football League. You're always looking for something better. Unless you have the best, you're always looking for better. And that's what they're doing. And we think, after looking at last night, can't speak for you, I can speak for myself. And I said this about a month ago, maybe 6 weeks ago. I think Colin Kaepernick is better. He's an upgrade. And you saw it last night on display, full display. This wasn't the Little Sisters of the Poor. Okay, this wasn't the Jacksonville Jaguars. This wasn't the Arizona Cardinals or the St. Louis Rams or the Cleveland Browns. This wasn't one of these teams like the Kansas City Chiefs where you could just walk all over them and look good doing so. This was the Chicago Bears defense. This was a 7-2 football team. This was a team that had been getting it done all season long. This was a team that was forcing turnovers at an alarming rate. This was a team that was playing some of the best football on the defensive side of the field all season long. And he absolutely annihilated this Bears defense. Systematically took them apart piece by piece by piece. Whether it was his legs, whether it was his arms, whether it was his smarts, checking at the line, audibling to something that was a bad play before, getting them into the right play. He did it all. Even the simplest of things, he executed to perfection. You scramble out of the pocket and you run backwards 5 yards. And I talked about this with Christian Ponder and a lot of these young quarterbacks. They take a 5-yard sack for no reason. If you run backwards 7 yards and then come up 2 yards and outrun the defensive end, but you're running out of real estate, throw the ball out of bounds. Get it past the line of scrimmage. Chuck it out of bounds. Save yourself, save your offense 5 yards of real estate. Why make it 2nd and 15 when it can be 2nd and 10? And that's one of the simplest things you can do. Yet, not a lot of people do that. He did that. He did everything right last night. He extended plays with his legs, made the throws on the run, made throws from the pocket, put precise touch on the football. I was most impressed with the touch because I know he has a strong arm. I saw it at Nevada. It's not a question of whether he can throw the football. But the touch is always a question with quarterbacks. You can have the cannon for an arm. Can you put touch on the ball? That's one of the problems the opposing quarterback on the field last night has. Jason Campbell, no touch at all with Jason Campbell. It's either a bullet or it's too soft. But there's no in-between with Jason Campbell. As a Redskins fan, I know. I've seen it too many times. It's either way too hard or way too soft. And Colin Kaepernick put it on the money just right last night. You had to be impressed with what you saw. I know I was. And I tell you what, if you're Jim Harbaugh and he's already come out and said, hey, don't know who my quarterback is. I got 2 quarterbacks riding a hot hand right now. Because let's not forget, before Alex Smith got hurt, he put together 2 bang-up performances. We're talking 16 of 17, 18 of 19, something like that. And then before he got hurt against the Rams, he was 7 of 8. So we're talking 26 or 27 of his last pass attempts, only 2 incompletions. So don't be so quick to make a rash decision on Alex Smith just because this guy, Colin Kaepernick, has come by and wowed us. Okay? Don't be so quick to close the book and move on from a guy who's been playing solid football of late and has taken you to the NFC Championship not just a year ago. So that is an interesting dynamic in San Francisco. That's one of the takeaways from the game last night. Let's get to the other quarterback in the game on the other side of the field in Jason Campbell for the Chicago Bears, who there was a lot of rumblings coming into this game about him being a free agent after the season and how this was his audition for a lot of teams around the National Football League. For what? For what? We know what Jason Campbell is. And yeah, he might have got a raw deal in Oakland, but he wasn't going to take the Raiders where they wanted to go. Jason Campbell is a middle-of-the-road quarterback. It's just in his DNA. He's nothing special. He's nothing spectacular. He's a steady quarterback that's going to do just enough to get you a win and do just enough to put you in a position to lose. That's Jason Campbell in a nutshell. He's an average quarterback. If there were a picture in the dictionary next to average quarterback, there'd be a picture of Jason Campbell like this, throwing a football. Because he's a guy with a strong arm. He can make any throw on a football field, yet he's a check down artist. He's not going to take a lot of risks. He's not going to make a lot of big plays for you because he doesn't want to make the big mistake. He's not an overly mobile quarterback, yet he can run. But you can't tell because he doesn't run a lot. And so you get and you give with Jason Campbell. That's just the way it is. And so all of this talk of Jason Campbell being a free agent in the offseason, that's nice. It won't be in a starting capacity for anyone. No one will give him that opportunity. I know that. But as a backup, you saw last night that you need everything around him to be perfect for him to be an adequate backup for you. So if you don't have an ideal situation for Jason Campbell, then he's not the guy for you as a backup quarterback either. Because you saw last night, he was a deer caught in headlights. When that pass rush was coming his way, he could do nothing about it. And that's who Jason Campbell is. A guy that's big, he's strong, he can be mobile at times, but you won't see a lot of these qualities on the football field because he doesn't use his God-given talents to the best of his abilities. You'll get average play out of Jason Campbell 9 times out of 10. So let's put that to rest too. You look at another thing that I saw last night in this destruction of the Chicago Bears. Aldon Smith is an absolute monster. And it's funny because if your team doesn't have an elite pass rusher and you watch that kind of performance, don't you just salivate? Don't you just relish at the thought of having someone like that on your team? Can you think about all the teams? I believe the 49ers drafted 7th or 10th in the draft when they got Aldon Smith. How do you feel if you're one of those 9 or 6 teams that were under the 49ers in that draft who didn't select Aldon Smith? And there are several teams that could have used a defensive end or outside linebacker in that draft. Now, look, I know coming out of Missouri, you didn't see that coming. I know I didn't. And I had a high draft pick that season. Okay, so yeah, I get it. I know that Aldon Smith was right there. I probably had a shot at him. But I didn't see Aldon Smith being the disruptive force that he's been since he's come into the National Football League. I can't lie. I can't sit here and act like I knew Aldon Smith was going to set the league on fire in his first 2 seasons. But he has the same makeup as a DeMarcus Ware. That's what makes him so special. He doesn't look overly strong. You look at his frame, it's a wiry frame. He's a big, tall kid, long, lengthy. But he knows how to use leverage. He knows how to use his arms. Have you seen someone use their arms as well as Aldon Smith does? I mean, he gets under tackles' shoulders, under their pads, puts them on skates. 70% of the time. He takes a left tackle, puts him up on skates, jacks him back up into the quarterback, moves him out of the way. I've never seen a guy his size, his length, use his arms and redirect tackles as if they were fullbacks or tight ends. I mean, what he's able to do with tackles, and look, we're talking about Jamarcus Webb and Gabe Karimi and the Bears' struggles on their offensive line. So look, let's not blow this thing out of proportion, but this guy has been doing it like this in the National Football League for 2 seasons. This isn't a fluke. This isn't a breakout game. He's been steady like this for 2 seasons now. And we're not even talking 2 full seasons because this season isn't completed yet. We're talking about a guy, they showed the graphic last night. Most career sacks in your first 2 seasons. His second season isn't even done yet. And we're already talking about Reggie White and Derek Thomas, 2 of the best pass rushers I've seen in my lifetime. And so, and I have a special place in my heart for Derek Thomas. Looking at Aldon Smith, he's going to shatter Derek Thomas's numbers if he continues on the pace that he's on right now. And I don't see why he won't, because I feel like, and I had a buddy of mine tell me this, I feel like Aldon Smith is just scratching the surface. I think he's still a little raw. There's still some things that he can add to his game to make him that much better. And that's scary if you think about it. I mean, look at what he's doing with just a simple bull rush, a swim move, and an inside technique. Look at what he's doing with just 3 moves. Think about what happens if he ever develops a hard outside back inside move or a spin move. What if he ever adds that to his repertoire? What will tackles do then? I mean, this guy is elite right now. Watching this game, I have issues getting to the quarterback. I'm a Redskins fan. We all know that. I have issues getting to the quarterback. A lot of people want to put that on the fact that Brian Orakpo is injured. And yeah, that has a little bit to do with it. But if Orakpo was playing, I'd still have issues getting to the quarterback. You know why? Brian Orakpo is not elite. And I love Brian Orakpo. I love Ryan Kerrigan. But they have deficiencies. They're one-trick ponies. I feel like Ryan Kerrigan has taken a step back this season because he's exclusively using the bull rush. He's not, using inside technique. He's not spinning. I thought that he was going to work on his game. And early in this season, it really looked like he was going to come back after having a season to work on his game. I thought he was going to come back with a lot of moves. I thought he was going to use the hard outside back inside. I thought he was going to use some hard inside rush. I thought he was going to use maybe a little bit of a spin move and maybe a little bit of a swim with a rip. Every single play Ryan Kerrigan rushes, you just get a bull rush. And if he catches you off guard or gets under your pads enough, he'll get you. But for the most part, you're getting a bull rush and a straight speed rush. That's all he has to offer, and it's not good enough. In the National Football League, if you're not elite, and Ryan Kerrigan, while he does a lot of things for us, he's not elite at either one of those things. He's not going to beat you out and out with his speed. He's not just going to overpower most tackles. He's a big, strong guy, but he's not that strong where he's going to have leverage, where he's just going to overpower guys. And so he's not elite in any sense. And he doesn't get pressure on the quarterback consistently. You look at Brian Orakpo, he's a one-trick pony. He's got the rip move. He's going outside with a speed rush, and he's using the rip. And guys are hog-tying him and choking him out. And the refs aren't calling it because they're tired of seeing him use the same move. And so they're not throwing a flag anymore. And so he needs to develop more moves. And so I don't have elite pass rushers. Watching Aldon Smith, I was drooling. I had to wipe my mouth. I had to wipe my mouth on several occasions. Because I want that. I was salivating. I want that. That's what I want. When you think of a pass rusher, you think of Aldon Smith. That's what I want. I was jealous. Because it only takes one to give you a chance to be elite on defense. All it takes is one. Now, of course, you need someone on the other side because teams, once they get a wind of how good you are, they're going to start doing things to take you away. And you need someone to take that pressure off of you on the other side. The Redskins already had that. We got 2 number 2 pass rushers. We don't have a number 1. 2 twos doesn't make a 1. And that's with anything. That's with corners. That's with receivers. And that's with pass rushers. 2 twos doesn't make a 1. If you got 2 number 2 corners, you don't have a number 1. If you got 2 number 2 receivers, you don't have a number 1. If you got 2 number 2 pass rushers, you don't have a number 1. And that's what the Redskins have. 2 number 2s. 2 guys that if they have someone on the other side of them that's elite and taking pressure off of them, they can flourish. But I don't have one guy that you say, hey, we got to make sure we block this guy. He's dangerous. He can change the game. And that's what Aldon Smith is. A bona fide game changer. And I am flat out jealous. That man is an absolute problem. He's a monster. And what he did to the Bears was absolutely criminal. He was fantastic, and I tell you what, Aldon Smith is the new pass rusher. He's the new breed of pass rusher. Just like there's a new breed of receiver with the 6'5", 6'4", runs like a deer receiver, physical specimen, the Julio Jones, the A.J. Green, the Calvin Johnson. That's a new breed of receiver. Aldon Smith and DeMarcus Ware are the new breed of outside linebacker. They're the guys that you want to draft. They're the mold, if you will. The big, tall, lanky, rangy guy like a Jason Pierre-Paul. You know, these are the wave of the future. These guys with wingspans the size of the equator. You know, these things just expand and stretch around the earth. You want guys with wingspans like that, tall, long, and rangy, and know how to use leverage. Know how to get up under a tackle, use their arms, use that limb to not allow tackles to get their hands on them and get to the quarterback. That's the new breed of outside linebacker, defensive end, guys that can get to the quarterback. And just like a lot of you out there, I need one. I need one. Sign me up. Wherever there's one of those, sign me up. I want one. I put my name on the list of teams. You know, put the Redskins on the list of teams that need one of those. I don't know where my name is on that list. No, some teams need these type of guys more so than others. But put my name on the list. I'm like a season ticket holder in this case. In this instance. Sign me up. Put me on the list. When everybody else gets theirs, make sure I get mine too. Because I want one of these. They're special. These don't come along every year. These don't come along every 5 years. These don't come along a dime a dozen. So I can put my name on the list all I want, but you might not get one of these for another 25 years. And so these guys are coming more often. You see Jason Pierre-Paul. You look at Aldon Smith. They're coming more frequently, but there's still only 2 of them. There's still only 2. You want to throw in DeMarcus Ware? There's 3 of them. And so there's 32 teams, and there's only 3 of these guys in the league. So you look at that rate and you say there's not a lot of them out there, and they're not coming along at an alarming rate. So that was another takeaway from the game, was that, man, is Aldon Smith an absolute freak at outside linebacker. He can get it done. You look at the game as a whole, and the 49ers just dominated. You know, Colin Kaepernick was playing out of his mind, and they did everything they wanted to. I mean, the stats that Mike Tirico was given during the telecast, it just gave you some insight as to how bad the Bears were being dominated. At one point in the game, the 49ers had ran something like 23 plays. You know, we're still late first quarter, early second, somewhere in there. And they were averaging over 10 yards a play. And this is run and pass. I mean, Frank Gore was gashing them. You know, Kendall Hunter was gashing them. So it wasn't just through the air. They were getting chunks, whatever they decided to do. And so we're talking, you know, over 230 yards of offense. And we're not even close to halftime yet. It was alarming how this Bears defense was being manhandled. And so they dominated the Bears on offense, did this San Francisco 49ers defense. They dominated the Bears defensively, did this San Francisco 49ers offense. They did whatever they wanted to do in this game. And it's games like these that make you question, who are the Chicago Bears? Remember I asked you a week ago against the Texans, we were supposed to find out who the Bears really were. And remember, we didn't learn anything because of the weather and Jay Cutler getting injured. We didn't learn anything about who the Bears were. Remember? We talked about that. Remember I asked, who are the Bears? We're going to find out. Remember I asked you that? Remember I left the game feeling just as confused as I did going into the game? You see why I asked you who the Bears are? Never mind the 7-2 mark. And when they played against the Texans, they were 7-1. Never mind the record. Okay? You can win 7 games and still not have an identity. The Bears have an identity on defense. What is their identity on offense, though? Do you know? Because I'm still confused. I still don't know what the Bears bring to the table offensively. Now, you can take this one with a grain of salt because it was Jason Campbell. But I tell you what, Jay Cutler wouldn't have survived behind that offensive line on Monday either. So, it doesn't matter who's at quarterback. You don't have an... We've already talked about this. Doesn't matter who your quarterback is. You don't have an adequate offensive line, you don't stand a chance at quarterback. The offensive line is the heartbeat of the offense. You rip out someone's heart, they're going down. You rip out somebody's offensive line, that quarterback's going down. And so, it doesn't matter if the Bears can run the football with Matt Forte. If you can't pass protect, this Bears offense isn't going anywhere. And so, the Bears defense can do all they want on defense, force as many turnovers as they want. Those turnovers are going to run out. Because when you get to the playoffs, you're not going to run into the Titans. You're not going to run into the Colts. You're not going to run into teams that are going to give you 4 and 5 takeaways. You're going to have to actually play teams straight up and actually execute on offense. Everyone's good when you get to the postseason. There are no duds. You know, there are no Detroit Lions for you to beat up on. There are no Kansas City Chiefs around. You have to play sound football offensively and defensively. And right now, I'm not sure about the Bears on offense. Defense, I think this was an anomaly. I just thought that the 49ers had a game plan. They really couldn't prepare for Colin Kaepernick and what he brings to the table. Thought he brought an element that the Bears weren't prepared for. And so they came in thinking, hey, we got a young guy. We're going to confuse him. We're going to give him different looks. We're going to get after him. And we're going to force turnovers. And he counteracted that by playing the game of his life, and they weren't prepared. They came in with one game plan. There was no plan B. Plan A was going to work because he's a young guy. We're going to confuse him and force him into mistakes. There was no plan B. And when plan A didn't work, there wasn't anything to fall back on. They just got dominated. So it was okay. I throw this one out of the window. Offensively, though, for the Bears, I'm confused because I can see this happening more than once. I can see this Bears offense being dominated. This isn't the first time they were absolutely dominated offensively by an opposing defense. We saw the Packers take it to this Bears offense early in the season when they lost their first game of the season. And so we know the Bears can be dominated offensively. So now the question is, who are you? Who are you? We're going to find out because you have some tough games coming up. And you can't hide. You can't run. You can't hide. I'm going to find out who are these Chicago Bears. Because if they're not careful, the Packers have already leapfrogged them in the division now. The Packers have already passed them. Now the question is, can you get that spot back? That's A. And B, can you hold off the Minnesota Vikings? You have them twice coming up here in the next month or so. Can you hold off the Vikings? Because if you want to act up, if Jay Cutler wants to get hurt, if you can't protect, you think Jared Allen and company, Brian Robertson, won't get after your quarterback, you got another thing coming. If you can't protect, if you can't keep Jay Cutler upright, if Jason Campbell has to play, it'll be a repeat of last year. The bottom will fall out of this team again. So we'll see who are the Chicago Bears. And that's another thing that I took away from that game is this is really a question that needs to be answered now. Who are you? Bears got absolutely embarrassed on Monday Night Football, 32-7, as the 49ers ran it, passed it, picked them off, got after the quarterback, forced fumbles. They did whatever they felt like doing. They even sprinkled in a safety for good measure. They did whatever they wanted to do in this game, and there was no one to stop them. There was no resistance by this Chicago Bears team. No resistance whatsoever. Bears drop to 7-3 and now find themselves in second place in the NFC North Division. By virtue of this loss, the Packers leapfrogged them in the division, having a head-to-head win over these Bears. They're now in first place, are the Packers. So now the Bears find themselves in second place. They got to get it going because we saw this story from the Bears last year where they start off hot, Jay Cutler gets injured, backup comes in, bottom falls out. It can happen again. So they need to tighten this up. Meanwhile, the San Francisco 49ers, coming off of that bad tie with the St. Louis Rams at home a week ago, really came in and made a statement. Look, don't get it twisted. We slipped up, thought we could just show up against the Rams at home, and we got a rude awakening. But we're awake now. We're wide awake. Eyes are wide open. We see the big picture. And just in case anyone was doubting us at home, We're going to show you what we can do, and that's exactly what they set out to do, and that's exactly what they did on Monday Night Football, taking their record to 7-2-1 on the season. This San Francisco 49ers team is dangerous, and you're fooling yourself if you think that they can't get it done on a week-out, week-in basis. And if you don't think they're one of the best teams in the NFC, a lot of people like to ignore them. They like to talk about Atlanta. And they like to talk about what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are doing right now. And they like to talk about what the Packers and the Bears are doing. Don't you sleep on this 49ers football team. Don't you do it. Because they still play good defense. It isn't what they were doing last year. Okay, last year they were dominant on defense. This year, they're just an above-average defense that can turn it up to dominant at some points. But week in, week out last year, they were dominant. This year, you get a subpar performance, then you get a dominant performance. Then you get an average performance, then you get an above-average performance. So you don't know what you're getting week to week. Because last week, against the Rams, they were subpar. I mean, the Rams went up and down the field on them. This week, they were dominant. And so, don't you sleep on this 49ers team. I said all that to say this. Don't sleep on this 49ers team. Don't you sleep on this San Francisco 49ers football team. And that's going to do it. Throw it up. That's a touchdown. Want to tackle on this quick extra point. I had a buddy of mine talk to me about something he posted on Facebook talking about how we love the NFL and it's a big soap opera. And he's correct. I mean, that's why we love it. You know, the NFL has so many storylines to follow. I talked to you yesterday about Jacksonville, and if you're Mike Mularkey, how do you take Chad Henne out after what he was able to do? For the first time all season, you look like a competent offense. You look like a team that could actually score. He gave this Jacksonville Jaguars offense something they haven't had all season, the confidence that we can score every time we set foot on the field. He gave guys opportunities to make plays with the passes that he was throwing. You know, the passes that he threw gave guys the opportunity to not only catch it, but make something happen after they caught the football, which is key in the National Football League. You can throw a pass to a guy and have him catch it, but not be able to do anything because he had to leap and go make a grab. He had to go leave his feet to catch the football. He had to stretch and dive for the football. You know, he didn't catch it in stride. He had to reach behind him. It was behind him to make a catch. He put the ball in precise locations where they were able to catch it and make a play. And that's what you saw on Sunday against the Houston Texans. How do you take him out? Well, Mike Mularkey agreed with me. He said, you know what? This guy gave receivers opportunities. I can't take him out. I have to play him. I have to see what we have in Chad Henne. Can he continue to do this? Can he make us a viable team the rest of the season? I'm anxious to see what this Jacksonville Jaguars team looks like because I dubbed them one of the worst teams in the league. But after Chad Henne's performance, I had to take a step back and say, you know what? Let's see what you can do. Maybe the talent that you have in Jacksonville isn't as bad as we all think. And just remember, Maurice Jones-Drew should be coming back here shortly. If Chad Henne can get this offensive passing game going, you sprinkle in some Maurice Jones-Drew, all of a sudden this Jacksonville Jaguars team doesn't look as bad as they did earlier in the season. You take a look at San Francisco. We talked about, in the top of the show, about their quarterback position. What does Jim Harbaugh do? He's already came out and said, I don't know what I'm going to do. I need time to think. I have until Sunday to figure out who I'm going to start. You know, I don't have to tell you who I'm starting. I'll tell the rest of my team that, but you don't have to know anything. I have time to think about this, mull over my decision. And so that's an interesting storyline. What do you do if you're Jim Harbaugh? Do you sit Alex Smith down and say, all right, we're going to give the young fella Colin Kaepernick a chance? Or do you go with the wily veteran who took you to the NFC Championship game a year ago and say, hey, this guy has gotten it done for me. I want to see if we can get it done again, go back to where we were last year and get over the hump this year, being that we went last year and we've learned from our mistakes a year ago. You don't know what's going to happen. That's something worth keeping an eye on. The NFL is full of storylines that you have to follow. I mean, you look at the Philadelphia situation. What's going on with Andy Reid? Is he going to make it through the season? You know, we know he's a dead man walking come the end of the season. You know, after week 17, Black Monday, you know he's gone. First thing Monday morning, he's done. Will he make it out of this season? I don't know. I had a buddy of mine, that same buddy that talked to me about, the soap opera and the NFL and what it is and why we love it. He also mentioned to me that he didn't think the Eagles hit rock bottom yet. That's hard for me to imagine. They looked terrible against the Redskins on Sunday. But he thinks things can get worse. And he's probably right. They might have one more dud in them where they just absolutely quit. Where they lose by 40 and they don't look competitive at any point in the game. And you can see guys visually quitting during the course of the game. Maybe that's coming. Maybe that's on the horizon. That's something worth keeping an eye on. You look at Carolina. I told you that is not a locker room that's conducive to losing. Cam Newton doesn't handle losing well. He's won all his life. So when you start telling him he's a loser, he doesn't know how to take it. You got other guys in that locker room who don't know what it's like to lose. And so, looking at that Carolina Panthers locker room, it's a lot of volatile personalities in that locker room. It's a lot of guys in there that don't know how to keep their mouth shut. And when things aren't going right, they're going to say what's on their mind, and things can implode. That locker room is a ticking time bomb. And I tell you what, Ron Rivera is not the right guy to keep that locker room under wraps. That thing could get ugly here shortly. And if they don't beat Philadelphia on Monday, they lose to the hapless Philadelphia Eagles on Monday, I'll tell you what, that whole thing could explode. That's another storyline worth looking at. You look at the situation out of Pittsburgh with the Steelers and Byron Leftwich. Find out he has broken ribs. He's not going to be able to play. Now you have to turn to Charlie Batch. That's an interesting situation out there because this Steelers team went from one of the better teams in the AFC to now, can you make the playoffs? I mean, you go into this game against the Browns with Charlie Batch, this is not a cakewalk. This is no longer the Cleveland Browns that you just go in, show up, and get a win. They're going to be a tough out. They may even beat this Steelers team on Sunday. If they're not careful, if they don't run the ball, if they turn it over, the Browns can beat them. That's something worth also keeping a watchful eye on. And they signed Plaxico Burress today. Another happening of the Steelers. And they realized that they got a lot of, small, 6 foot and under guys running around out there. You need presence in the red zone. You have Heath Miller, but you need someone out wide that you can just toss the football up to and ask him to make a play. Mike Wallace is nice when you're at the 40-yard line and you tell him run a 9 route and he can go get it. Antonio Brown is nice when you run that deep dig route. He catches it and separates from the defender. Even Emmanuel Sanders is nice when you tell him, hey, run this slant and take it and go. But you need someone that's actually an imposing figure in the red zone. Steelers really don't have that other than, of course, Heath Miller. But you're not throwing a fade to Heath Miller. They need someone that they can do that to. And enter Plaxico Burress. Let's see how that works out for him. A lot of interesting storylines in the National Football League. Those are just a little bit of them to keep an eye on. And I find it fascinating in the National Football League and all of these things happening. There's 32 teams, 32 different storylines that you could focus in on. And that's why we love this league called the National Football League. And so I thank you for joining me. That's going to be an episode. Check the show out. I'm on Facebook. In the Lab Room is the Facebook page. Like the page. Every video I've ever done on the Facebook page. I'm also on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter. @In the Lab Room is the Twitter handle. Appreciate you if you follow me on Twitter. Also, I'm on YouTube. That's the easiest, most precise way to access this show. Every video I do, whether I upload it up into Facebook or not, or put it on Twitter, it's on YouTube. As soon as I upload it to the internet, it's on YouTube. And so you have first dibs on the video. You don't need to go anywhere else to find it. It's at your fingertips. You like a video, like it on Facebook, like it on YouTube. You have a comment, post it on Facebook, post it on YouTube. I'll see it. I'll respond and also drop something in the inbox. All of these are ways to get at me. If you want to drop something in the inbox, inthelaBroom@gmail.com is the inbox. Thank you for joining me. And as always, enjoy the day. Get out, have some fun, do something. No football on till Thursday. You have time. do something. We're getting close to the holiday season. As you know, this is my favorite time. We'll talk about that in episodes down the road. Won't bore you with that today. I'll just say one last thing. Want to see you back here, same time, same place tomorrow. And as always, have a good one. I have these episodes coming at you, and I know I've been saying that, but they're coming. Just know that they're coming. Have a good one. See you tomorrow.